What's up, guys? It's Mr. Frosti here, aka the People's Supplier, and it's 1:41 a.m., but I am dedicated to making this video. So let's get right into it.
Mr. Frosti.
So I've been waiting a long time to make this video. I've been waiting on my cables to come in. I did a lot of planning. I'm using cheat sheets that y'all aren't supposed to know about, but we're gonna get this done today. Remember a while back when I asked you guys to send me random samples so I can make a beat out of them? I need y'all's help. I'm trying to make a beat out of random samples that y'all send me, so send me samples to my email, please, and thank you, and please. Well, I did that, and you can go find the song up on my Bandcamp and SoundCloud in the respective areas. Links will be in the bio. But before we get started talking about how I did it, first I'm gonna show you what I did. So let's roll the tape.
Mr. Frosti.
All right, and we're back. Hope you liked everything you heard. If you didn't, too bad. You should have sent samples. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about each person that sent me a sample, and we're gonna talk about how I use their samples. And we're gonna start from the sample that I used the least to the samples that I used the most. So first off, let's give our shout outs to the people who sent samples. Robby, my guy. Phillip, my guy. JDagrees, well, she's not a guy, but my guy. Horus The Hitmaker, my guy. And Choir B, my guy. I appreciate all you guys for sending me samples to mess with. Each person sent a pretty nice sample, I'm not gonna lie. And some people sent multiple samples. So I got a lot of these things. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. Let's not waste any time. So, make sure these headphones are going on the right way. Destroying the fro I worked so hard to pick out. All right. So, the very first sample that we have here is from Robby. And he sent me one sample and I got one use out of it. He sent me I believe it's a drum sound that he had from a sample pack that he already owned. It was a real nice little drum sound. It sounded like this. And I put that into the mrfrostibeats, basically drum machine. And after all the effects and processing that I did in the drum machine, it sounds like. So, very simple, nothing too crazy. Yeah, and it was used in the second part of the song. So after the breakdown that you guys heard, it's just a nice little instrument back there. So, on to the next. Let's talk about Phillip's sample. He sent me a really, really nice sample, and it was one sample that I got 3 uses out of. It was a background kind of ambient noise. He said it was a recording of him on the trail with 2 of our friends. There were cars passing by over on a bridge that they were under. So he recorded that, and it was this really kind of just epic soundingness. Well, the original sample sounded like... You get the point. And the way that I used it was just as a little background part for the second half of the song when it dropped in there. You could just hear the background here and then all the little cool parts where they're driving over. I just drowned out the sample and reverb, so it was just this nice ambience in the background that kind of added to everything else that was going on. Another thing that I used the sample for, I chopped out a little bit of it and used some of the driving over the bridge parts as a rise. So you get this rise sound here. And also that was drowned out in a bunch of reverb, and to give it the kind of feel of swelling, I just automated some gain there. And then the last thing that I got out of it, I zoomed in super duper duper extra close, chopped out a tiny little itty bitty part of the sample, and I used it as a hi-hat, which was used during the first and the second part of the song. Here in the mrfrostibeats, it sounds like. And then the other part, the other time that I used it, same hi-hat, but I used it differently in the first part of the song. And I used it in my Kong drum designer, which were the drums for the first part of the song. And it sounds like, so, real nice little hi-hat I got out of just zooming in really far, chopping it real nice. So that was Phillip's sample that we used. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Now on to the JDagrees sample. She sent a really cool sample of her popping balloons after breaking down one of the balloon garlands that she made for a client of hers. And it was a really interesting array of sounds. If we go look at it here, actually, we just listen to it. So if you hear in the background, or if you listen to what's going on in the background there's some talking that's going on. And I chopped up some of the talking from the beginning of the sample and some from like the end of the sample, and time stretched a bit at the end of the sample. But I did that to get that talking sample that you hear in the beginning. And then that I use again in the second part of the song, but it's pitched a little bit higher so that we feel like it's different, but it's the same thing. And then of course I chopped it up so that it hit a little different. So really fun little usage of the vocals going on in the background there. I also got 2 other uses out of it. I made a kick and a snare out of the balloons popping. In the first part of the song, I used the pop sound to get a snare after some heavy processing, and the balloon snare ended up sounding like this. And then on the second part of the song, I used the balloon popping to make a kick sound, and the kick came out sounding like this. So really cool that I was able to take balloons and make a kick and a snare out of it. Like, just really awesome. I loved it, that sample. There was a lot more that I could have taken out of it, but for the sake of using everybody's samples, I did not want to focus on only using her samples. So the next person we're going to talk about is Horus The Hitmaker, Hits by Horus. He sent me loops. He's also a producer and he makes beats and stuff like that, so he sent me loops. Those are considered samples, so I wasn't mad. But it was really interesting trying to find a way to fit pre-made loops into a beat where I had created a lot of things from scratch. So a lot of his stuff ended up being textures in the second half of the song, but we also did get an instrument out of it as well. So let's go ahead and talk about those. The first thing that we got out of it was this really cool, just like chord texture. And I'll just play it real quick. And that was just, it was the loop that sounded like this. So I took that, chopped it up real short, time stretched it, and added a buttload of reverb on it to get and it was just this really awesome texture for the background of the whole thing. I loved it. And then another sound kind of texture that we got was this nice little swelling kind of bell type sound. I'll show you the sample first. So this is what the sample originally sounded like. And honestly, I just wanted to stop and make a whole beat out of that in and of itself, because you guys know how I feel about plucky sounds and just really nice kind of lo-fi sounds. But I didn't, and instead I took that first little chord, or this part, that right there, and I reversed the verb trail that was on there, and then I kept the part, and it ended up coming out like this. And then, of course, I threw a crap load of delay on it, because why not? I mean, it's a bell drop. And then this is where I got a little crazy. So the next thing that I did with Horus's loops, oh man, and this part was so fun. I created an instrument from a sample of a pluck. Okay. So that's the sample that I got it from. And basically, I chopped it up to get this one pluck, right? So I took that one pluck out of the entire sample and I loaded it into this Scenic hybrid right here. And the cool thing about the Scenic hybrid is it allows you to layer multiple sounds. But after a whole bunch of just messing with knobs and tweaking stuff, and then adding on another sound on the other side, I got this really nice, it was like a pluck pad, I would say. Ended up coming out sounding like this. Which is one of the staple instruments in the second part of the song, and I just love it so much. So, a lot of great things that I got from Horus The Hitmaker. Thank you so much, my guy. I appreciate it, and you better be sending samples the next time, but I want something more random, not just loops. All right, now, the person who sent the most samples and who took me on a trip, Quirey, let's talk about it. First, a little backstory on the type of samples that Choir B sent me. So Choir B has been performing in plays for a little bit now, and he basically recorded a backstage version of the plays while they were performing. So I got a lot of these really interesting, intricate sounds. I got a lot of thumpity thump thump thumps. I got a lot of footsteps. I got a lot of just vocal hits. And the song was about, the play was about somebody getting murdered. Multiple people getting murdered. So I also got these really interesting like screams. There was glass shattering going on. There was just so many different samples that I was able to choose from. And he sent me 4 audio clips ranging from 10 seconds to 12 minutes long. So I had a lot to play with from this man. So that being said, let's talk about the first instrument called Play Fun. Play Fun I made out of a Mimic creative sampler, as we see here. And Play Fun came from a sample that you would not expect it to have came from. It was this sample called Deadly Squeal, and it sounds like... just craziness, okay? So I took that, loaded it into the Mimic Creative Sampler, slowed it down a whole bunch, put a loop at the end so that it kept looping at the end, and that's how we got this very interesting Mimic Creative Sampler, which sounds like... So... really cute sound, and then this is what we hear at the beginning of the song. Very fun instrument. Was really surprised that I got that type of sound out of this Deadly Squeal. But wait, there's more. Not only did I use the Deadly Squeal for the Play Fun instrument, which I called it, I also used it for another instrument called Beachy Death. And of course, all of these things are named weirdly because, it was the squeal of, I don't know if the person was dying or not in the play, but you heard the squeal. It was crazy. It was a scream, it was a squeal, it was all of those together. Also, big shout outs to the actor who made that sound because you made this song. All right, so I threw it into a granular sampler, which is another type of sampler that Reason has, a grain sample manipulator. And I did a bunch of really cool stuff with the LFO rates just to make the sample move a lot more. And this instrument ended up coming out sounding like... So just really smoothness. I was able to get 2 really nice instruments out of this squeal / scream. So, love it. Moving on to the Stageplay kick. I got a kick out of one of the Stageplay sounds of, I guess it was a stomp or something like that. Granted, there were plenty of stomps for me to use, and I just found one that I liked and ended up getting a nice kick that sounded like this. And that's the kick that's used at the beginning of the song. The next thing we're going to talk about is the Stageplay rim. This also came from probably a stomp or a knock or something that was going on. I know there were people wearing heels and everything. There was just all kinds of different shoes going on and just making all these really interesting and cool noises. But the rim ended up coming out sounding like... And of course, that's processed with a lot of effects. I put some reverb on it just to really give it that EDM / lo-fi feel. And in context, that's used with the balloon kick, the trail hi-hat, and the Empire Monkey, and the drums in the second part here. So really nice. It was a really nice build for the drums there, mixing up everybody's samples and kind of putting that into one. The next thing I want to talk about real quick is the transitions. First off was the laugh transition. And you know what, we might as well bunch them together because they're in the same spot basically. So the laugh transition that you heard at the beginning came from the Stageplay noises that Choir B sent. And I'm pretty sure, I'm almost 100% positive that that's actually Choir B, because I've heard him laugh plenty of times. I've heard him laugh goofy, and I think that's him. But I pitched it down a little bit and time stretched it so that it just... this really nice break in the beginning to give you just a break, I guess. And then the other part was the wailing transition. There was this really nice wail that was found somewhere in the samples there, and it sounded like this originally. And I think it was somebody crying over somebody that had just died. Who knows? I don't know. These people were great actors, and they made really awesome sounds, okay? So what I did with that was I added a bunch of effects on it, reverb, all that jazz, EQ, took out the low end, blah, blah, blah. And really to make this transition kind of stick and make this like just present itself as a cool transition, I made a reverse verb that kind of led into the transition, and it ended up making this beautiful just sound and build up for the drop. And just cool thing, reason why I wore this shirt today too, I really felt like it had that Mario Kart 64 sound of when you get hit with a red shell or a green shell and you're just, oh, wah, 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 wah. Yeah, so that was my favorite part about that. But yeah, that was the laugh transition and the wailing transition. And the last thing I want to talk about is the percussions at the end that kind of glued the whole song together in this second part here. Let's talk about the random sprinkles and the random percussion. I had got to the end of the song and I had used everybody's samples, and I was like, man, this sounds good, but it just needs like more. And that's like, you know, that's the death of every producer and every beat maker and even artists. Like, we always feel like it needs just a little bit more, right? Just a little bit more. So at first I was gonna give up and be like, nah, I've done enough. I've been working on this for 2 days. Might as well let it go. But something in the back of my head was just telling me, listen to the 12-minute sample. Because he had sent me a 12-minute sample, right? It was just like, listen to the 12-minute sample. I was like, I don't want to listen to it. I've been working on this for 48 hours. I can't stand another 12 minutes of looking for samples. But in the end, I broke and I listened to the 12-minute sample. And as I listened, every time I heard an interesting sound, I just kind of cut it out and saved it. Cut it out, saved it. Cut it out, saved it. Cut it out, saved it. And then at the end, I had this plethora of random noises, and I'll just play all of them real quick. So yeah, really random set of noises. I took all of those except for one sample and I threw them into the Kong, and basically I gave them all their own pad in this Kong drum designer, and it was labeled, it was the first 9 pads, I think. So and I obviously put effects on all of them, some reverb and just, you know, cool stuff like that. And then I used Reason's polystep sequencer and just kind of had it randomize notes within the chromatic scale. So basically between the first 9 steps, and did all 4 different variations over here and sent it to the track and just kind of let it be a random array of all of these instruments triggering at random times in a 16th note pattern. So sometimes there would be rest, sometimes there wouldn't. And the result was just quite literally the most amazing thing I could have hoped for. I was so happy with the results. Oh my God. So here's just kind of an idea of what that turned into. And that I just let that go throughout the whole song. I didn't question it. I didn't go in and touch anything else. All I did was add drops and filters. So at different part of the songs, it did a little filtering and stuff like that. But other than that, I let it do its thing. And yeah, so that is pretty much everything I did to make this beat. It was a lot, but it was a lot of fun. And I'm definitely excited to do this again. Don't know how excited I am to make explanation videos about it again, though. But I'm going to do it every time because I know that you guys are always interested in finding out how I made these things, what I did to make them. And that's what I'm here for, just to kind of give you guys that information. So full disclaimer, I've already recorded this video once before. It turned out to be 54 minutes long. Very, very, very freaking long. I'm still going to try and edit that video. It's a lot more in depth. I talk about every plugin that I use to make every part of the beat. I break down all the steps that I took to make each of the drums and things of that nature. So I will be posting that on my Patreon page. So if you're interested in getting a more in-depth talk about what happened, go follow my Patreon. I'll be dropping it on my Patreon pretty soon here. There's also all sorts of other cool free stuff that you get with just becoming a patron. I give out my sample packs for free. There's loops of the week, all of that jazz. Just a bunch of cool stuff. So if you like what you hear, if you want to hear more, if you want to see more, there's always the Patreon where I do my more in-depth videos and stuff like that. So as always, thanks for tuning in with your boy, Mr. Frosti, aka the People's Supplier. If you liked the video, like, share, subscribe, tell a friend, and don't forget to hit that bell for the notifications. I'll see you guys next time.